Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Today, part 2 of bezels around cabochons. In part 1, we got the bezel cut, we got it shaped, we soldered it, and I like how it turned out. Just about the right height. Today, we're going to put the bezel onto a back plate. I rolled out some 20 gauge sheet. You could use 18, 20, 21. This might actually be closer to 21. And we'll go through the steps necessary for the bezel onto the back plate. I've also got a couple of ropes here. And I think I'm going to use the twisted rope. Last minute decision. This is part of a necklace and earring set that I'm working on, so we want to make them look alike. Anyway, let's, before we get started, if you get something out of this video, please subscribe, like, and comment. It really does help the channel grow. Click the bell to be alerted to new videos when they come out. All right, let's go through the steps of this. We have our bezel, we have our back plate. The first thing I'm going to do is take some 320, maybe 400 sandpaper, and we want to make sure the bottom of the bezel is perfectly flat and has a nice sanded surface for soldering. Really simple. Do some circles, turn it 90 degrees, do some circles. Don't push too hard, you don't want to bend the bezel. And then we want to check and make sure the entire bottom of the bezel is flat and has a sanded surface. Once that's all good, we're going to choose where we're going to put it on our sheet. You could use purchase sheet. I just happened to have some silver laying around, so I rolled out a piece. And we want to leave enough space here, 1 for trimming, 2 for the rope. And what I'm looking for now is just making sure there is no light underneath the bezel. In other words, the bezel is sitting on the back plate all the way around, no gaps. Remember what I harp on, solder does not fill gaps. So what we'll probably do is put it right about there. Next thing we want to do, take some maybe 600 or 800, and let's rough up our surface so we have good soldering on both sides. We're going to polish all that up. We're going to trim the excess off, so don't worry about it. All right. Next thing I want to do is mark where I'm going to cut this. We don't need that whole big piece of sheet, so I think I'll cut it about right there, and we'll come around and we'll cut it there. Now I'll go ahead and cut this out. You don't need to watch me using a saw. I'll be right back. Okay, the back plate's cut out. While I was away, I went ahead and made the rope, twisted rope to go around it. This was done almost identically to how the bezel was made, so definitely check out part 1 and the ring band series. They both have a lot of good information for putting together things like this. I want to mention that on the bezel, we used hard solder. I also used hard solder on the rope. When we put everything onto the back plate, I'm going to use medium. And then I'll use easy for the bail or jump ring or whatever we're going to add to that to hold everything. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to take my parallel pliers. This is a very important tool, and I'm going to make sure this rope is perfectly flat. And I'm just going to go around and I'm going to squeeze a little and make sure everything looks good. Then, like everything else we solder, I like to just hit one side a little bit with some maybe 400 sandpaper. Whatever you have is fine. And once we do that, it's going to put little flats flats on the bottom of that rope. That will be what gets soldered to the back plate. Now, I'm going to put the bezel. Remember in part 1 we marked the bezel to cabochon where the seam is, so it can kind of shape itself. And I'm also going to put this rope around there so it can kind of shape itself. And that's how it will look when it's all finished. Let's see if I can get this to focus for you. A little bit of a rope. Now, I see, again, a little bump with a gap right about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take something with a flat side, or the side of my workbench, and I'm just going to push on it a little bit to close that gap. Look for any others. Whoops. Started to come off. Let me, there we go. Now, there's no gap there. It follows the bezel perfectly. And that can sit right there for a few. Everything makes a nice shape. And we're almost ready to start soldering. If you have any other questions or I missed something, make sure you drop a comment and I'll try to explain something better, differently, maybe do a whole nother video. Just let us know. Okay, we have our bezel, we have our rope, we have our back plate. The next thing I'm going to do before soldering is I'm going to take some alcohol. I'm going to use rubbing alcohol, 91%. I actually prefer using denatured alcohol if you're in a state that you can get that. Denatured alcohol does not leave a film. Rubbing alcohol can. So we'll wipe it off real good. With soldering, you want no gaps, nice surface, and no oils. Make it clean. I will also go around the soldering surfaces a little bit there. And we'll get set up out on the soldering bench and we'll go through the next steps. Now it's time to start soldering. I'm going to show you how I do it. This is something else that if you ask 5 different people, you'll get 10 different answers. But let's start with removing the cabochon. And what I do before I solder a back plate, if I am using sterling silver, I have a little mixture of boric acid and denatured alcohol. You can buy a bag or a bottle of boric acid on Amazon really cheap. It will not dissolve completely. I put about this much boric acid and then fill it with denatured alcohol. I'm going to shake it up a little bit. And I'm going to take my back plate and I'm going to swish it around in that mixture. And what this is going to do is help protect against fire scale. I'm going to light it to burn it off. Fire scale is that brownish, blackish crap that you get when you overheat sterling. What's happening is the solder or the copper is oxidizing, and we don't want that. It'll have just a little bit of a white powdery surface, and that's totally okay. And then I'm going to set the rope with the bezel on the piece. I'm going to make sure the rope is all the way down. Again, this is how I do it. You can do these two in separate operations if you want. That's perfectly okay. Or you can do it all at once. Make sure our position's good. I'll take some flux. I just happen to be using Mighty Flux. You can use whatever flux you prefer. And I'm going to go around the inside. You can see it's oozing all the way out. And then, so things don't pop around, bounce, stand up, move, I'm going to take my torch and I'm going to dry the flux first. We're going to heat all around, being careful to not melt the bezel. It's thin. The flux will start bubbling. If anything moves or shifts on you, just stop, reposition, and then keep going. Then you'll see it build up kind of thick. And as we continue to heat it, it'll turn brown and black and start flattening again. Now our flux is ready to go. Now that piece is going to be very hot, but I'm going to take my medium solder, and you can use cut up pieces of wire solder. You can use pallions, whatever you happen to have. And I'm going to take some strips of that solder. Ouch, this little screen is hot. Be careful with that. And I'm going to start with 4 sides. The solder is going to flow. Don't overdo your solder. If you do, your cabochon's not going to fit anymore. I'll take a little smaller piece. Having a hard time grabbing it. For those ends. And we'll take, whoops, one more down here. And that should be enough solder to flow all the way around the bezel. If it's not, you can always add another pallion or piece of wire and reheat it. Now the next thing I'm going to do, around the rope, I'm going to do the same thing. Slightly smaller pallions, I'm going to prop it right up against that rope. I'll try to get a zoom up here in just a second. And I keep dropping my pallions. I got that one. And I'm laying the pallions on the back plate up against the rope. I'm not propping them up on top of the rope. I don't want the solder to flow into the design of the rope. I want it to flow underneath it. We're going to be heating from underneath, and that solder should flow all the way around. I can get one more pallion here. I think that should do it. We'll see. See if I can get a zoom up here of where my pallion. You can see I've got one here, 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 and here. And then on the outside, here, and here, and here, and here. And when we heat this from the bottom, the solder is going to flow outward and under both the bezel and the rope. Okay. About that, I keep flipping it over. Now, we're going to take our mini torch and I'm going to use a bit larger flame here. Something else that causes oxidation is having too cold a flame and being on the part too long. You want to get in there, get everything melted, and get the job done. So I'm going to go way above it so I don't blow the pallions off of the back plate. I'm going to warm it up. Then I'm going to come from underneath and I'm trying to concentrate the heat round and around directly under the bezel and the rope. You'll see the solder start turning brown. Shortly after that, the solder is going to melt. There it goes. I'm going to keep going until I see solder go all the way under the rope and the bezel and pull away. That's how fast soldering a bezel onto a backplate should be. You'll oxidize, you'll melt, you'll put a weird burn texture on it if you go too long with the heat. Okay, I'm going to drop this into the pickle pot and we'll be right back on the other bench. All right, we're soldered, we're pickled, we're ready to continue. Something that will happen when you're soldering a bezel, sometimes they'll curl over the top a little bit, get a little bit out of shape. I take something round and I will run it around the inside, holding it straight just to make sure that bezel's standing straight up. You might not need to, but if you do. Now at this point, if you're going to add anything like a jump ring or a ball, let's say you're going to do something there, or you're going to do some sort of other embellishment, little things like this. I like to cast a bunch of them and leave them in boxes so I can just grab. You could even do both, I suppose. Or you could get really gaudy and do some leaves or something. If you're going to do anything like that, you're going to want to do that now. That's why we leave a little extra here for soldering on the back plate. Yeah. So, I am going to be off camera putting a jump ring on the very bottom, right onto the edge of the back plate, so I don't need to leave any extra. I'm going to go ahead and trim this all off. Now, if you're using large, gaudy, chunky ropes or embellishments, you might want to use a jeweler's saw for this step. Since I'm leaving this as it is, I'm not adding anything more to it, and the bail loop will go on the edge, I can go ahead and trim the whole thing. And what I'm going to do is use some shears. Shears have a flat side and they'll have a tilted side. I like to put the flat side up against the rope and do very small cuts so I don't cut the rope. I'm just turning it, squeezing it as I roll it around, and I'm holding the flat side of these shears up against the rope so I don't have a bunch to trim or sand off later. We'll just go all the way around here. And there's a piece for the scrap bucket. Watch out for these. They're very sharp. I've poked myself a million times. Now, we have almost complete setting. What I will typically do at this point is use a round rotary tool, sandpaper file. You could use a hand file if you want. If you're using a hand file to smooth out this edge, you're going to want to tip it just a little bit so you don't file the rope or any other embellishments. So file a little bit like that, maybe not that dramatic, but that gives you the idea. And you can go around with a slight tilt and clean that up. I find it faster to use something like this. And again, I will tilt it slightly as I'm going around. So I don't hit the rope. I don't want to have flat spots on the outer side. And almost there. The edge is nice. What I will do also, at an angle again, on the outside, just real quick, go around and remove the little lump that the shear made, or your saw. And perfect. We're all set there. Okay. Almost done with part 2 here, but what I would do next on this, I'm going to solder my ring onto the bottom edge, and then I'm going to put it in a tumbler for 30-40 minutes, and I use the ball and spike media. And that will work harden the piece, number one, and it'll remove a lot of the imperfections, making polishing later much easier. So, this will go into the tumbler now. We're going to call this done. Well, I'll put the bail ring on it first. Watch out for part 3, maybe a day or two. We're going to put a little bit of patina on this rope so we can see it, and the twist will stand out better to the eye. We'll set the cab. Quick final polish. It won't need much, I can already tell. And that'll be part 3. If you have questions, or you think I missed something, or you have a different way of doing it you'd like to share that with us, drop a comment. Happy to discuss it. With that, be well, be creative, and we'll see you next time.